Okay, we're live.
All right. I'll call the general committee meeting to order. Welcome everyone to our virtual general committee meeting. I never get tired of saying this, but I'm really tired of saying this. Due to the COVID-19 physical pandemic, council is practicing physical distancing. All members of council, the executive management team, and the city clerk are participating tonight via video conference. The senior leadership team who have reports or items on tonight's agenda are not visible, but they are available to help us with our deliberations. The first item on the agenda, as always, is the consent agenda. For the consent items, I'll read out the title associated with the recommended motion from the staff reports and the items for discussion. Members of council general committee can ask that the item be held so it can be discussed later. If the item is not held, the motion printed on the agenda is deemed to be approved on consent. We'll have no further discussion of the item tonight, and it'll go forward to city council for consideration at its next meeting. We have no public meetings or presentations tonight. The reports of reference advisory or special committees. The report of the City Building Committee from February 2nd is to be received. City Building has recommended 3 motions. The first one is with regards to the replacement of a door frame and transom window at the South Shore Community Center. Does anyone wish to hold that? Seeing none, Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I know this is a bit of a stretch, but I do own a window and door company, so I thought I would hold a conflict. Even though it's a weak one, it still may be valid.
Okay, Madam Clerk, has Councillor McCann's potential pecuniary interest been recorded?
Yes, Mayor Lehman, it has.
Thank you very much. That item is approved on consent by those voting. The next items with regards to the Municipal Heritage Register for 59 William and 188 Collier. Does anyone wish to hold that item? Okay, seeing none, I will myself declare potential pecuniary interest on that, as I live a few doors away from one of those properties. Madam Clerk, has my potential interest been recorded?
Yes, Mayor Lehman, it has.
Thank you very much. That one is also approved on consent by those voting. Single-use plastics at city-owned facilities and city-permitted events. That was the third motion out of City Building Committee. And seeing no holds on that item, it is approved as printed. Staff reports tonight. We have a number of staff reports. The first one's with regards to a temporary sanitary servicing arrangement for the Salem Secondary Plan area. No holds. That is approved. And for those watching, that was an item that we had some discussion on just before Christmas, and a arrangement has been worked out. So maybe I'll just speak to that at announcements very briefly. The next item is the Water Operations Branch 2020 Drinking Water System Report. That one needs to be deferred. Yeah.
Or just defer it now, or hold it? Hold it.
You can hold it and we'll just defer it when it's up on the agenda. Thanks, Deputy Mayor Ward. The next item is Lovers Creek New Bridge at Tollendale Mill Road. No holds on that. It is approved. Next item is with regards to traffic calming speed cushions, concrete versus asphalt. Hold by Councillor Thompson. Okay. The next item is a confidential personal information matter. It's appointments to some committees. If someone could hold that.
Do you have to hold that? Sure, I'll hold it.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Ward. We have a confidential disposition of property matter on King Street. Does anyone wish to hold that item? Okay, seeing none, that is approved. We have a staff report regarding rail crossing agreements for municipal infrastructure and services. Anyone wish to hold that? Okay, seeing none, that is approved. I feel like we lost a member of council. We did. Councillor McCann. Okay, you know what? We'll give him 60 seconds to get back online, and then we'll continue with the consent agenda.
Mayor Lehman.
Yes.
Councilor McCann just said his computer just restarted on its own, so it's rebooting. So he'll be a minute.
I feel his pain. I've had that happen during a meeting myself. Okay. All right. Well, we'll take 2 minutes to wait for the reboot cycle on a city laptop. And you can listen to me drinking my coffee.
Now's your opportunity, Your Worship, to be a stand-up comic. You have some time to fill.
Oh man, it just doesn't feel like that kind of time right now, does it, Councillor Harvey? I wish I had more material, but life doesn't seem to be full of a lot of it right now. I can tell people that it is supposed to be above zero for the next 3 days. And if you remember that Rick Mercer report sketch about, you know, the 7-day forecast on Environment Canada, and the last day it's 1 degree. So Canadians excitedly wait for that one degree day. It never arrives. It arrived today. Today was the 1 degree day that makes you think spring is coming. It's usually immediately followed by 10 days of snowfall warnings, but we'll see.
Otherwise, we'll have to use the Rick Mercer snowplow video.
You know, I meant to re-up that after the plow naming, because those of you, the video actually shows the kids' artwork from the competition, where they take they let the schools paint the plow. And something I didn't know until we did the Rick Mercer report on that is that our staff actually assign the plows to the routes that go by the schools, which, if you think about it, is an obvious thing to do, but wasn't obvious to me in the slightest. But the kids actually get to see the plow if it's still out on the road at 8 in the morning when they're finishing up their routes. Usually they're not, but some of them are also on the arterials, so they get a chance to actually see their artwork going by if it's not full of snow. Perfect. There we
Thank
go.
you.
Here's Councillor McCann. Yep, we've held off. So I stopped Councillor McCann just after the confidential items. I'm going to assume you didn't want to hold the rail crossing staff report. We have one remaining staff report in the consent agenda. We'll just pick that up again, and that is the 2020-2021 Ontario Gas Tax Funding Agreement. No holds on that. It's approved on consent. Okay, items for discussion. The first item was put on by myself. It's with regards to the continuance of the Digital Main Street program. No holds on that. It is approved. It's a long one. The next item is with regards to the investigation of an advanced left turn signal at Arda and Wright and Arda and Hawkins. It's put on by Councillor Natalie Harris, who couldn't be here tonight. No holds on that item. It is approved on consent, and that's for investigation. The next item is with regards to the I Love Barrie signage. Councillor Thompson? Held by Councillor Thompson. And I will note there's a revised paragraph 3. I'll go over that when we deal with the item. The next item for discussion was put on by Councillor Kungle, and that is an amendment to the business licensing bylaw regarding sale of animals.
Hold, please.
Held by, I did see Councillor Kungle first, and Councillor Harvey, I'll call on you immediately
Sure.
after that as well. Next item is with regards to remuneration for the Anti-Racism Task Force. Any holds on that? Okay, seeing none, Councillor Harvey, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. In order to meet my legislative requirements under Section 17, Sub 3 of the Police Services Act, I will not participate in this motion.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Has Councillor Harvey's potential interest or interest under the Police Services Act been recorded?
Yes, Mayor Lehman, it has.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Councillor Harvey. That item's approved on consent. We have the addition of a municipal street name for John Burrows. Any holds on that item? Okay, and I'll just note there's a typo. It's B-O-R-R-O-W-S. Mr. Burrows' name is with an O. So we'll clean that up for council, and that is approved on consent. Finally, COVID-19 immunization clinics. The item's put on by myself and Deputy Mayor Ward. No holds on that. And it is to approve the use by the health unit of City of Barrie facilities, community centers, as COVID-19 immunization centers. And more details will certainly come on that in the coming weeks. Okay, so we have a few items that were held. We'll cycle all the way back here to the staff reports. The first one's relatively straightforward. It's the water operations branch drinking water system reports that needs to be deferred just by one meeting. Deputy Mayor Ward, did you want to move that?
Yeah, I'll put a motion on the floor to defer this until the March 8th meeting.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll just call the question. Those in favor of deferring? None opposed. That carries. Thank you. The next item was held by Councillor Thompson. It's with regards to, it's the staff report, excuse me, on traffic calming, speed cushions, concrete versus asphalt. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lehman. To a member of staff, some of the wording in the report with the term speed cushion to speed bump, these are not going to be designed as a speed bump like you would see in a shopping center, just like a kill strip of concrete or asphalt. These are going to be the engineered design ones that start at 0, go up. They're the width of the road, 3.5 meters long. So if you maintain the speed limit, you actually don't feel them. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Thompson, I'll ask if Mr. Arias Undren is on the call. There he is. Okay.
Bala.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Thompson. Yeah, these the speed humps are usually the larger versions that really slow you down. The speed cushions themselves are more for low speed streets. And they do not necessarily go the full width of the road. There could be 2 or 3 depending on the width of the road. And also, yeah, usually depending on the width of the road, there's usually 2 cushions or 3 cushions.
Sorry, thanks. Okay, actually, do I need to put the item on the floor as printed?
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry about that. At this time, I appreciate the report. I think the numbers are a little bit low, so I'd like to move alternative 2. And I can speak to that.
Sure, go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
So I understand the costs with the report being very minimal, but I truly believe that when this goes to procurement, that we'll realize a much greater amount. And truth be told, if a plow damages an asphalt, it normally causes a groove or something, which really isn't. But if it hits a concrete, it shatters, it cracks, it heaves, and they actually become very slippery. Over time, they become like a concrete floor in a warehouse and stuff, that the grooving of the concrete is hard to maintain, and it maintains the temperature a lot longer than asphalt. Asphalt is only warm when it's the sun out, but concrete will maintain its temperature. So the freezing is like a lot more, and that's why we don't see our highways and roads built in concrete other than the 407. So that's why I think we can achieve more traffic calming by going with alternative 2. I know it says 15%, but at the funds in the budget, I think we could see anywhere from 65 to 70, which would be a great increase.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Thompson. So alternative 2 is on the floor. I'll go to you next, Councillor McCann. Just a quick question. Actually, I'll through to the mover of the motion. So, Councillor Thompson, as I understood it, I think part of the reason for the saving, the concrete's got to be set a foot deep into the asphalt, right? You got to dig a trench and then put the concrete in. Well, and I guess I could ask this of staff. So is the savings on the materials, or is the savings on the fact that you don't have to dig a 1 foot deep trench to put in a speed cushion? I guess I'll ask that of Mr. Arrhenius-Sundren.
To you, Mayor Lehman, the savings is primarily related to surface. However, even with the asphalt speed cushion, you do have to grind the asphalt down a bit so that there is, good adhesion. So from a labor and construction cost point of view, outside the material costs, our data suggests that the cost difference isn't appreciable.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Okay. Well, thanks for that. Councillor McCann.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor Lehman. And maybe just if I could have a direct clarification from Councillor Thompson. In my vision, I always expected that these speed cushions would be from, east to west, and they'd be raised a certain level of height. I kind of had this offline conversation with staff. Could we just get a picture of what these cushions would look like from either Councillor Thompson or from Mr. Uranus, please? Councillor Thompson, maybe I'll go to you, Councillor Thompson. Are you requesting that they go from east to west, from curb to curb? Like, I don't want to have 3 different spots where people can actually, manipulate and maneuver their tires through each, speed cushion, or finding ways to not reduce their speed by manipulating the speed cushion. So I just want to make sure that I'm not misunderstanding the concept here. So if one of you can maybe clarify that for me, please.
So I'll say that I would like to see them go curb to curb, other than they leave them off of a foot of a curb, a barrier curb. That way the water can pass through and down the middle, because if it goes curb to curb, you create a dam, which would hold the water. So there's a slight gap in the middle and on either end. I don't know what the standard that our engineering will go with. I can send you pictures and standards of ones from other municipalities. I'll send you it by email.
Yeah, I just think that the most effective speed cushions that I've ever traveled on are in Toronto, in what's the street where Prince used to live, where they actually had them up, of almost 1.5 feet, and they were probably 10 feet wide. And I know Councillor Thompson and I talked about this probably 2 years ago. We're not getting those. We're getting something a bit smaller than those, correct?
I guess we'd have to wait, and I would imagine staff would send us an email before council next week into the standard they're going to go with. There's MTO standards for stuff like this. So,
And I don't think the design changes based on the material, does it, Mr. Arrhenius-Sundren? Like they look the same and they cover the same portion of the roadway?
yeah, through you, Mayor Lehman, the design would be the same.
Okay.
Regardless of the material, and we can definitely send some photos or illustrations of what we would typically install prior to the council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Alternative 2 is on the floor. Anyone else wish to speak to this? Okay, if not, I'll call the question on the motion. Those in favor of alternative 2, which is on the floor, please indicate. Is anyone opposed? None. That carries unanimously. Okay, the only other staff report that was held was the appointments, which we'll do in camera at the end of the meeting. That brings us to the items for discussion. The first item for discussion that was held by Councillor Thompson. It's with regards to I Love Barrie signage. Just a note, the mover has changed the 3rd paragraph. So we have an amended 3rd paragraph that is part of the motion that is printed, I believe, on the website, Madam Clerk, as well, the amended version. You're on mute.
Yes, Mayor Lehman, it's on the website. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just read that because it differs from what was printed last week. So paragraph 3 now reads that the cost of the sign not exceed $200,000, with the total cost to be fundraised by Councillor M. McCann in accordance with the city's donation policy, with assistance from the BIA, Tourism Barrie, and Chamber of Commerce, and that an update on the total funds raised be provided to General Committee with the report back from staff. So that is the printed motion. Councillor Thompson, if you wish to put that on the floor, or if you wish to put something else on the floor, go ahead.
I'll put the motion on the floor as printed, Mayor Lehman. Sorry, I'm just getting to, sorry. I was hoping that Councillor McCann would take this as a friendly, and I'm concerned about the date. I just think with, and you know, I spoke with you also, Mayor Lehman, that, you know, I'd love to do something that really sets us apart, and I believe that's what Councillor McCann is trying to achieve here. So I think with the opportunity, you know, normal procurement and getting, you know, a working group and meeting with all stakeholders and partners, I would like to see the date changed from October to July 1st, 2022.
Sorry, everyone. That would be in paragraph 2, Councillor Thompson. Okay. So if you wanted to put the item on the floor as printed, which you did, that would be an amendment. So you want to move that as an amendment, Rob? Councillor Thompson?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought do it general if Mike would take it as a, yeah, but I'll move that as an amendment.
Okay. So yeah, we need to do that as an amendment since it was already printed with October. So that's fine. Okay. So on the amendment to change the date to July 1, 2022, discussion. Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Councillor Robert Thompson, absolutely not. Just joking. I am totally fine with a date. I got to tell you that staff were encouraging me to not put so much pressure on staff, and I have to tell you that the entrepreneur inside of me was not letting it go. I wanted to have a win for the city. You know, it just seems that there's so much negativity surrounding every corner that you look, especially on social media. I wanted to have a real positive win, and I was kind of resistant to staff's recommendation. But I guess that Councillor Robert Thompson, you've got the power of persuasion, and we did talk earlier or later last week, and I think you're correct. I think having a little more time, especially with having myself raise the full $200,000 or whatever it cost when the staff work comes back, is just good practice. So I am fully supportive of having a later date, and hopefully the sign's erected and approved and all that good stuff before July 1st, 2022. Thank you, Mayor Lehman.
Okay, on the amendment to change the date, Councillor Kungle, I saw you next.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm in support of the change. And I guess I'm not sure if you want me to address it here or after that amendment has gone to motion, but I had another question regarding paragraph 2.
Let's just deal with the date for now. So anything else on the date? Members of General Committee? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question on that amendment. Just to change the date, those in favor? Are any opposed? None, okay. That is done. Councillor Kungle, did you, actually, sorry, Councillor Thompson, you technically still have the floor. Did you have further amendments or comments you wanted to make at this point?
Through you, Mayor Lehman, no, thank you. That's.
Councillor Kungle, over to you.
Thank you. Through Your Worship, to Councillor McCann and or staff, as paragraph 2 talks about a working group and members of that working group, I was wondering if you could provide any clarity around if we have an Arts and Culture Committee. I just wanted to recognize we've got a lot of these installations that have occurred the downtown. We've also got a lot of other initiatives that will be changing the waterfront area. And I was wondering if Access Barrie was an inclusive umbrella that I might not appreciate who might reflect that, or if there's an arts and culture committee that would be engaged in this.
Councilor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. The Mayor Lehman and I had some discussion previous to tonight, and he felt that we should have somebody from the Public Art Committee. So we do have a Public Art Committee member on the selection group. And your second question about Access Barrie being the sole staff resource that will be managing this, you had a problem with that or an issue with that?
No, through your worship, to Councillor McCann. No, I was just wondering if Access Barrie encompassed someone from an arts and culture. I've got no concern with that. I just thought arts and culture was missing from being referenced if it was intended.
Yeah, so maybe Rebecca can give you some more color on that. Or James Reed, please. To the mayor.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Kungle. No, the Access Barrie staff group does not include anyone from the arts and cultural community.
That's great, thank you. And sorry if it got convoluted, but perhaps I guess I would suggest, is it worth mentioning? Because I'm not seeing there then your intention, Councillor McCann, so it's not lost along the way that someone is also appointed from the arts and culture community, as you referenced, on that working group. So that position is formally recognized.
Councilor McCann.
Yep, so I think that we do have a member from the Public Art Committee on the selection process, which is the guy, which is Councillor Robert Thompson. He sits on that committee.
Councillor Kungle, did you have anything further?
Nothing further. I just was interested in seeing how members of the public tied to arts and culture were included, but I guess that answers my question unless others want to look at other membership to that working group.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jim Harris and then Councillor Owen.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lehman, and I do appreciate the questions from Councillor Kungle and the answers from Councillor McCann. Maybe through you too, the member of the Public Art Committee, to Councillor Thompson. Obviously, you're on the committee and you're a committed member. Do you feel comfortable representing that group, or is it something else, someone else from the art committee you would recommend? I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm just kind of wondering, as it relates to public art, do you see yourself as that representative?
Through you, Mayor Lehman. Thanks for putting me on the spot there, Councillor Harris. I think once this has to go through the procurement and all that, and we would involve Deputy Mayor Ward also sits on the Public Art Committee with me. So anything that was going to be installed, out of the courtesy of public art would be brought in and discussed in the meeting. Now, this motion had occurred after our last public art meeting. But I am comfortable that I would work with the Public Art Committee dealing with this and involve them and have input and bring it up in the next meeting to get feedback and share it with the other two members.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I just was, curious as far as that piece goes. And I do appreciate, the sentiment of engaging our art community. And obviously, if the Public Art Committee is enough, and I was thinking when Councillor Kungle mentioned that, there's also the McLaren. And, is that somebody or some perspective that we could add? I'll leave that. Maybe that's something, Councillor Kungle, maybe you want to add as a motion, or to amendment, but I'll just, as an observation. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I was going to speak about the Public Art Committee piece, but I saw Deputy Mayor Ward indicate, and I know he's a member of the committee, so I thought maybe it might be useful for him to say his piece before I.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Ward, was that what you wanted to talk about?
I just wanted to say that, first of all, I'm comfortable with Councillor Thompson sort of being the liaison. I don't consider whatever this is going to be, I think it'll be a great thing for Barrie, but I don't consider it public art. And in fact, we better not designate it public art because that'll get into a whole new field. I don't think we've got to get to that. I think the important thing is for the location. I think that could affect public art. I think I'm comfortable that before it goes ahead, when we determine a location, it's run by the Public Art Committee, just to make sure it's not either a site that's going to overshadow some of their existing art or a site that maybe they had their mind, a site set on to put public art in the future. I think that's the main thing. I don't have any problems with Councillor Thompson being a liaison between the Public Art Committee and this group, though.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor Ward. I had it expressed to me by a couple of people that the Hunter family's just given the city $100,000 to have a piece commissioned and located in Meridian Place with a giant heart, the heart and the horn. And obviously there were concerns that if this sign, especially if it had a heart where it's located nearby or in some way, that would really detract from their very generous donation to the city and the work that was done to locate that piece. Which is all to say that, yeah, the committee, whether it's Councillor Thompson, however that liaison occurs, it would be important to have their perspective on where it's located as well, especially if it is in proximity to any existing pieces. Councillor Aylwin, I guess over to you then.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lehman. And I'm glad you raised the Bob Hunter Memorial piece, The Horn and the Heart, because I was thinking the exact same thing. And I spoke to the chair of the Public Art Committee earlier today, and she expressed that concern, and it wasn't something I had thought about, that we'd have two heart sculptures within Meridian Place. So I'm wondering if we can maybe propose a slightly different approach, just because I mean, there's the concern about the location and, you know, complementing other pieces of public art within the square. I mean, I would also say the cost concerns me, because I think we also should be factoring in a maintenance contract or maintenance costs for the piece, for the sign. And I know the Public Art Committee has a lot of expertise in that area. So whether it's considered public art or not, I think they're a really valuable resource to help make this the best project it can be. And in terms of providing insight to, you know, how we can create a unique and very specific project that really makes it stand out. So I'm wondering if there's any appetite around the table to actually refer this to the Public Art Committee. We could have them do the upfront work of determining the scope of the project, and then we could come back with the proposal more fully formed, so that we get the best project possible. So maybe that's a question to the mover, whether he thinks that would be a valuable process.
Councilman, well, I guess it's Councillor Thompson, since it was Councillor Thompson who put it on the floor, but was your question for the original author of the item, Councillor Owen?
Sure, I'll ask Councillor McCann, and then I would also be interested in what Councillor Thompson thinks, since he is on the Public Art Committee.
As a member of the committee, sure. Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. And maybe I'll address Councillor Aylwin's question first by asking staff, other than the manicuring of the flowers and fauna at our signs of the 400, do we incur over the 400 signs?
I'm not even sure who on staff to ask that of. Ms. James Reed, which department maintains those signs? Is it actually operations?
Yes, Mayor Lehman, it is Mr. Farley's team, but I did have something that I could mention, in that we did, when we saw the item for discussion, we did do a very simplistic reach out to some other communities that we're aware of in Ontario who have this type of signage. And it is correct that there is a maintenance agreement. We have a meeting set up for later this week with the City of Kingston to learn more. So as I learn more, I can certainly share it with council.
Okay, I see Mr. Fryery is on the call. Mr. Fryery, what kind of annual maintenance work is required of the signs itself? Obviously, there's the plantings.
Your worship and members of committee, we had an extensive sort of repainting. We had them sandblasted, removed, repainted a few years back, and it was, I believe, in excess of $20,000. But with something like that, we certainly wouldn't expect that to be an annual cost. That was from when they were originally installed, and then we just sort of had them refreshed. But Councillor McCann's correct. We don't have any sort of ongoing maintenance.
Okay, yeah, thank you
so-
for that. I mean, I didn't think that there'd be a large maintenance cost from these, and the research that I've done, that didn't seem to be a major expense. So it'd be interesting to see what Ms. James Reed comes back with other municipalities. I do know that we were considering, or I was considering, bringing forth a movable sign. With the recommendation from staff, they elected not to go that route because of vandalism. So I guess I'm not interested in bringing this back to public art. To me, this really isn't a public art installation. This is a landmark sign. And we had a discussion, you know, Councilor Aylwin called my phone later today, and he asked, you know, I'd like to make this, I'm going to use my words, not your words, but I believe that this was the flavor. You wanted something creative, something maybe different that sets us apart from Kingston, from France, from Amsterdam, from Toronto, from Ottawa. You know, this is definitely not an original idea. This is an idea that's worked in all of those cities. And I think what works is that the installations and the marketing and the branding is bold and it's simplistic. And that is something that I actually specialize in marketing and advertising and sales. And I look at the Meridian Place strongly because I did think about many different other locations. And part of this intent is to drive business downtown Barrie, to inspire the city as a whole. And I think that Meridian Place should be the perfect location. Obviously, if we get down the rabbit hole, we see a lot of negativity or resistance to the area, then obviously I'll keep that in mind. But for now, I think with the initial investigation from Ms. James Reed, she's very comparable, and her team are amazing, as we all know that they can come back with a staff report letting us know all the nuts and bolts, and I'll come back and tell you how much money I've raised. And I can tell you right now that I raised $50,000 in less than 12 hours. And I'm already getting explosive interest in wanting to invest in this project already. And I've told them, listen, until I get approval from council, I don't want to discuss this anymore. So if that gives you any color on the availability of my resources and the ability that I have to raise the money, and I hope council actually joins with me. And I think that Rebecca James Reed, she has a team that is comparable enough that she'll be able to figure out the location if Meridian is an X or an O. And so I wouldn't be supportive of Councilor Aylwin. I went the long way around Lake Simcoe there.
Councillor Thompson.
I don't really have much more to add other than I'll, repeat and what Deputy Mayor Ward, this it really isn't in the public art. Now, we will be definitely respectful of the Bob Hunter 100%. That was a great addition, and it's done a lot of what Councillor McCann is looking for. That has attracted people, and people have praised it, and it's stunning. And they're going to add some lights in the near future to it. So, yeah, we will be very respectful to the artwork, the artist, and obviously the Hunter family.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for those responses. And I think the point around the maintenance, this is like going to be an interactive sign. There's going to be people like crawling on it. So I think it's something we need to think about, but it sounds like it's on your radar. So I appreciate those responses. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Owen. Councillor McCann, something to add on that?
You know what, Mayor Lehman, just to add, I didn't really want to go, wasn't really prepared to discuss in depth about this sign, but one of the aspects of the sign that I think is really exciting is that it's going to be digital. It's going to have a digital component that you can actually change the look of the sign through a cell phone. So whether it's LGBT community, where it's the rainbows, whether it's St. Paddy's Day and it's green, whether we're going to be, having a half mast, we can actually make this sign half mast as well. So it's going to be, Councilor Aylwin said interactive, and I was like, you know what, this is exactly what this sign is. It's interactive, and it's going to support many, if not all, communities that we have in our community. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kungle.
Your Worship, I guess I'll take a last stab if it fits to maybe make to see if Councillor McCann would take or Councillor Thompson, who held it, but Councillor McCann that framed the motion would take a friendly. And And that would be in the intention of still looking at some way, because the wording is about final design on location and signage. And I do want to thank Deputy Mayor Barry Ward for adding those points of clarification. I think he did it better than my attempt about what it is and what it is not. But I would like to maybe modify this in the current tabled paragraph 2, that in the third line, when we talk about access barrier to select the final design of the signage and engage our arts community stakeholders on location and installation timelines with a goal of October 2022, I believe is how we just approved it. But I'm looking more just to associate, before it's completely finalized, there is some type of formal nod to our arts community, that there will be a formal outreach. I think right now what I'm seeing from others that are connecting in on the motion that they're seeing is that it's reading that the working group is identified of members of council and elected officials. While we represent different hats, I think they are looking to see about how are we appreciating our arts community or reaching out to the McLaren.
Just a point of clarity, Mayor Lehman, it was approved that July 1st, 2022.
Oh, thank you, Robert.
Sorry.
Okay, so just so I have clarity on the amendment that you want to move, Councillor Kungle, it would be to add, I think your words were consultation with the Barrie arts community to the language before location.
Yes, thank you.
Was that regarding the design or about the location specifically?
About the location.
Okay.
Yeah, if we're clarifying that this is not considered to be an art piece, that it's got a different frame, then at minimum, I'm hoping we can engage our arts community on location to be mindful of things that we want to appreciate if the downtown is an area of focus.
Okay, so just if I might make a suggestion, we do have the member of the public art, the council member, but understanding that you want to engage the broader, I guess, community. Could you maybe just say a bit more as you introduce your amendment here around, are you looking for a public consultation initiative? Are you looking for, the public art committee to give advice as a whole on the location? What does that engage? I don't disagree with you, actually.
Okay.
I just like a bit of clarity on what you're moving.
Well, and as I'm hearing you say that, Mayor Lehman, I'm also thinking back, and I look to Robert, maybe it fits better to say, and report back to General Committee on the via memorandum, inclusive of engagement by the arts community on the location. I'm not sure if that's a better framing there, but
I guess I'm just, what I was specifically looking for is, do you want a broad consultation with the whole arts community? Is it the public art committee that you'd like to comment on that, or what did you have in mind, Councillor?
I'm looking just to make sure there's a process that we can report back to the public on, that this actually did, was broader than members of council. And I don't want to be critical of those wearing multiple hats, that they wouldn't do a sufficient job. So I'll look perhaps to Councillor Thompson or Councillor Harris that sits on the McLaren. If there's language there, but I'm hoping we can somehow identify to the public that there is a process by which location will be a formal conversation before there's a decision on location.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, you want to make sure that the Public Art Committee and the McLaren are consulted on the location of it? I'm
good with that. That captures at minimum what I'm hoping to do.
Okay, so Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
I don't know if this, through you, Mayor, I'm sorry to Councillor Kungle. I don't know if this would maybe capture what you're looking for. That staff engage with the McLaren and the public art and report back to General Committee with the final location.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, that's beautiful. Councillor Thompson, thank you. I think you've hit my intention.
Okay, so that would be an amendment to the second paragraph. Thank you for that, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Kungle, on the amendment. Councillor McCann, go ahead.
Okay, so that all sounds great, except you're kind of putting roadblocks into my fundraising abilities. If I don't know where this is going to go, it's hard for me to sell something that we may put in Queen's Park, right? So
Councillor McCann, maybe if I could help
Sure.
with I understand what you're saying. If maybe we add that staff report back to general committee with engagement to the McLaren and the Barrie Public Art with something in the BIA boundary.
Like, I think that, you know, if I can be so, if you don't mind, Mayor, being a little freestyle here, is that we've got a week, right? And I've had many discussions with the mayor, with Robert Thompson, with Jim Harris, sorry, Councillor Harris, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Morales, Councillor Aylwin, about, you know, this. And I've had many discussions with the public, and I've had many forums on social media, and location hasn't really been a major stumbling block or roadblock. What I'm suggesting is we do have a forum, Council Emery Congo, is that once we have a staff report back, that'll come back to general committee, then we'll have a selection process that the steering committee has selected, and then we'll vote on it that night, which will be a night similar to tonight. Then we'll have another week where the McLaren and the Arts Committee and the Arts community can weigh in on location and on funding or whatever it may be, like a normal process. So I just, you know what, like I tell my sales guys every time they're in front of a salesperson, a quote by Robert Sharma, and it's, if your vision is clouded, so will your results. We have rock stars at City Hall in with Rebecca James Reed's team and her staff, and they're going to do a fantastic job. They are going to engage. They know the public. They know Barrie. I have full confidence that they're going to be able to come up and not leave any rocks unturned. But the opportunity where you're looking for will be in our process already between general committee, before general committee, and during that week between general committee and city council. So I'm not trying to be a hard guy here. It's just that, I mean, I've just got I'm giving myself responsibility to raise $200,000, and I'm just trying to take this as much cloudiness outside so I can go hard and raise the money as soon as possible, so this council knows what this community is thinking.
Ms. James Reed, you wanted to add something?
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I was wondering if I could propose a slight change that I think would accomplish what the discussion is. And the change would be that in item 1, when staff report back to general committee with the full investigation of this, that we at that time suggest the location. And as part of that process, we could engage with the Public Art Committee and the McLaren, because it would give more certainty as we went through procurement for the location. Otherwise, you could have unfair bidding for different spots. It could have different infrastructure costs, that kind of thing from an electricity. So I would feel more comfortable that general committee approved that as part of item 1. And then our report back in the form of the memo in item 2 would be photos of the final design, the installation timelines and those things. But I really do feel that general committee should make the final decision of the actual location. That would be my suggestion.
Thanks for that. That makes a lot of sense, I think, members of general committee, and what that would look like. I was going to try and pull us back to the motion because I think we are getting a little clouded here. Paragraph 1 specifies Lake Simcoe in the background. So if you're approving paragraph 1, you're approving a location that at least has Lake Simcoe in the background. Now that could be a rooftop a long way from the waterfront, but I don't think that's what we're talking about. I think what we're talking about is something that would go somewhere along our beautiful waterfront in a location that the working group would propose to general committee and general committee would approve. Councillor Congo has an interest in making sure that we explicitly consult Public Art Committee and the McLaren. I really like Ms. James Reed's point. I think it respects what Councillor McCann has indicated, which is it will be easier to raise money when people know where this would go. And if we do that in the first step rather than the second step, which is actually how the motion is printed, that would actually be an improvement over the motion that was put on council's agenda. So if I might suggest, Councillor Congo, since it's your amendment, the language that Councillor Thompson came up with could be incorporated at the end of paragraph 1, which would have the the staff in Access Barrie speak with the McLaren and the Public Art Committee as part of their work on what's in paragraph 1 there. And then when we get the report back to General Committee, before the sign is procured, in fact, before it's designed and procured, we would pick the location based on, in part, that advice. So that would be my suggestion procedurally. Are you okay with that, Councillor Congle?
I'm aligned to that. I think that's a great process.
Okay. So members of General Committee, what would be on the floor then is an amendment to paragraph 1, which would specify that the location, the Public Art Committee and the McLaren be consulted with regards to the potential location of the sign, and the location be part of the report back to General Committee. That's in paragraph 1. Then we would probably strike the words "and location" from paragraph 2, since that would now be addressed as the first step of the process. Is that clear as mud? Okay, that's the amendment on the floor. Would anyone else like to speak to that? Councillor Jim Harris.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I just wanted to say for the record, in questioning Councillor Thompson's involvement as the public art representative, I no way wanted to diminish his love for and eye for art. So I just wanted to make that clear. Anyway, so I like this amendment. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. On the amendment then, I'll call the question. Those in favor of the amendment to paragraph 1 and to remove the word location from paragraph 2? Okay, that's unanimous. Further discussion on the motion as amended. Councillor Gary Harvey, go ahead.
Not necessarily a question, Your Worship, but more of a comment.
Sure.
I think this is a great initiative that Councillor McCann has taken up. Obviously, there was some initial concern around the funding sources behind it. But when you look at it, we're in the midst of a pandemic. Now, the timing of this sign is going to be as we're coming out of the pandemic, when especially tourism is huge in our city. And when you have a new legacy sign like this that's going to be in a very prominent area, I would highly suspect that we're going to be attracting people that have probably traveled to other parts of the world and made sure that they had photographs with these other legacy signs. So I applaud Councillor McCann, and I hope this does come to fruition for Canada Day of 2022.
Thanks, Councillor Harvey. Other comments on the motion as amended? Councillor Riepma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Initially, I was not in favor of putting another sign up because it seems to me that we've got plenty of signs, and City of Barrie really doesn't need any more signs. I'm coming around to Councillor McCann's idea. A bit reluctantly, I've got to say. But first of all, I wanted to say thank you, Councillor McCann, for moving forward with something that's creative and trying to come up with a good idea. And I'm hoping that the committees that are going to have a look at this sign off on it, and that we get something really great. But I have some concerns about it, and I am going to vote in favor of it, although somewhat reluctantly. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Riepma. Other comments on the motion? Just a few from me, I guess. My major concern with this was really around the amount of public money as it played out. That's been changed, and so with the full amount fundraised, I think that's a major improvement to this this proposal. Now wouldn't be the time, in my opinion, to be spending 150 grand of public money. I could see matching smaller amounts, but I think this is a good approach in terms of funding it. I just had a question, and I guess I'll ask this of Ms. James Reed, and then maybe Councillor McCann, you want to chip in on how you see this playing out. Paragraph 2 specifies a competitive bid process with regards to the design of the signage. Ms. James Reed, is your understanding then that the city would run a process that would involve people bidding on their own designs? So a fabricator and a designer would team up, and we would get their artwork to show what the sign would look like if their bid was chosen? Or is the notion here that somebody would come up with a design and we would then put that out to procure somebody to make the fixed design?
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. My understanding of the wording in the motion is that we would go to RFP for a vendor to come to us with perhaps three designs within their scope of the proposal. And then once the vendor is selected by staff through our procurement policy, because as we know, council members don't participate in our procurement process. Once we have selected the vendor, then the vendor would then present the three options to this committee to choose the preferred design. So that was how I was envisioning this working through the process.
Okay, Councilor McCann, I'll just finish my thought there and then feel free to chip in if you want. That answered both of my questions, which is, first of all, we've always separated procurement decisions from council for obvious reasons, and that's good practice. And then the second reason was really because I think one of the things around this, Councilor McCann, you referenced this. It is something that many other cities have done, and so I'd like us to put our own twist on it. I think if the city of Barrie is going to do this, rather than have Toronto and Ottawa even use the same font. Kingston, I'll give them credit. It's at least a different font, so it looks a little bit different from other city signs. And those who've ever been to Trois-Rivières in Quebec, they have an incredible one facing the river at their outdoor band shell, which similar to Meridian Place, but much larger and right on their waterfront. It's in their equivalent of Heritage Park. So it's right. It's visible from the water and from the land. Anyway, either way, it was important to me that if, and I'd suggested this to you, Councillor McCann, that we do have a tremendous amount of graphic design talent in this town. We have a college that runs programs in it. We've got a cluster of those companies in the downtown core. And it would be my hope that some of that talent could team up with fabricators to come up with a creative design for us so that we're not just replicating Toronto or Ottawa or Kingston for that matter. I know there's a vision for this and respecting that. I'm hoping that we can, though, put a bit of a twist on it so that it becomes something unique and it does stand out a bit more. So that was my only comment on the sort of design piece. And before I call the question, Councillor McCann, was there anything in that you wanted to add?
Yeah, sure, Mayor Lehman. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate your thoughts. I think that you were definitely on top of my list that I want to get involved in this, you being the mayor. And you did mention that you would like to bring this out for a competition. And I'm involved in a couple mastermind groups that are high-level business people throughout the world. And I kind of brought this up to them, and they were like, about 3 weeks ago, you should do a contest. And it actually was staff that maybe said that this may be confusing the situation, because the work, especially now that I'm given the task of fundraising, you may have a design that we fall in love with, but it may come at a cost of $1 million, right? And so I didn't want to confuse the situation. I had a really good conversation with Councillor Aylwin, and I kind of repeat myself what I said maybe a few minutes ago, that my vision, which after tonight, I hope it's going to be now council's vision, is my expectation, is that we keep something that's bold and we keep something that is I don't want to use the word plain, because plain maybe refers to boring, but it's the excitement around the sign that I want to see. I want to see people standing beside the Love Barrie. It's not the I Love Barrie, it's the Love Barrie sign, because I want to have Councillor Aylwin standing beside that sign. So it's Councillor Aylwin loves Barrie. I want Napoleon to have their senior staff members, Napoleon loves Barrie. I want to have council, maybe, crossing our fingers, stand beside the heart. Barrie Council loves Barrie. And we can start having a great city where we get people visiting from all around the world, and they've got this you know, and maybe the heart will be the unique aspect that that will capture you, Mayor Lehman. That maybe there's a little seat inside the heart that's maybe that unique flow, so you can bring maybe your daughter sitting inside the heart with you beside it. So the Lehmans love Barrie. That's where my vision is going. But like I say, after tonight, it no longer becomes a Mike McCann thing; it becomes a council thing. And that's what I want this to do. I want this council to embrace this, and I want hopefully council to help me raise some money, and I want this to be something that the city just falls in love with, because it's simplistic, it's bold, it integrates our beautiful waterfront, it integrates our Dunlop Street, our lakeshore, our beach, and drives business down to Barrie and inspires. I think this is an inspirational piece. And so it's funny, you and I are at opposite ends. So Councillor Thompson, you may be the deciding vote when it comes down to the selection process. But either way, I'm not going to be too hard on the final design, as long as it fits into our financial criteria, and it's elegant, it's bold, it's stunning, and it's sustainable. And I think that the person that's manufacturing this sign should be one designing this, because with my lack of knowledge, they'll have more intricacies on what $200,000 will get us. So once again, I feel like I've gone the long way around Lake Simcoe today, but I mean, I've got a lot of passion towards this. Councilor Morales is nodding, so I'll just stop talking.
And I will call the question. The motion has been amended. Those in favor of the motion as amended, please indicate. That is unanimous. Okay, thanks, members of General Committee, for that discussion. The next item that was held by Councillor Kungl. It was with regards to the business licensing bylaw regarding the sale of animals. Councillor Kungl.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I wanted to speak to this briefly, but with since it was positioned on the agenda, a quick change to how it's tabled. So I'm looking to amend what's currently tabled to remove "and registered breeder." And hopefully that will assist staff in scoping some of the information that's being asked to come back. I'm happy to speak to that further and wanted an opportunity for anyone else to comment if they wanted to see the shape. Really.
Yeah, could I just get that amendment again, Councillor Kungl?
Yeah. So it will read as is, but it will end with a period. So it will be modified to say "an animal shelter and registered humane society, period."
Okay, so dropping "and registered breeder." Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So the motion that's on the floor just drops those three words. Discussion on the motion that's on the floor. Sorry, Councillor Kungl, did you have a request for information from staff there?
No, I didn't. I just
okay. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Discussion, members of General Committee. Councillor. Oh, sorry, Councillor Harvey. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a few questions to the mover of this motion. Can you help me understand why this motion's come forward? I haven't publicly heard of any issues within our city. So I'm just kind of curious as to where this came from.
Go ahead, Councillor Kungl.
Yes, thank you for the question. I'm happy to speak to that. There was some outreach that I had received around querying if council would perhaps be engaged in an opportunity to reinforce our bylaws. And I can speak specifically. So it was shared with me that Orangeville, Toronto, Richmond Hill, Newmarket, London, Mississauga, Oshawa, and some others had adopted a very similar bylaw. I explored this with our city clerk to appreciate what was currently in our bylaws around the wellness of animals. So should there be an appetite, I wanted to move it forward with council to appreciate any recommendations staff could bring back. The intention is where we might be able to play a more formal role, as others have, around tightening up our bylaws that supports where we can, making sure that we are not enabling the sale or commerce of animals like puppies from puppy mills.
If I may follow up, Your Worship, thank you. So I guess part of my concern, even with your amendment by removing registered breeder, is your motion actually effectively, A, targets one individual retailer here within our city that, as far as I'm aware, through a full day of investigating this, I have not found any evidence that there's been any issues with this particular retailer. And it effectively would refrain them from being able to sell realistically, even though you're using the word animals, I assume because you referred to puppies, that you're actually targeting, your target audience would be the dogs. But you're effectively shutting down this retail business in the midst of a pandemic. We're in our second week of being removed from lockdown. And I just question, A, the timing and the intent of this. You haven't disclosed what group approached you, but I'm anticipating that it must have been some type of a rescue shelter that has approached you in regards to this. I would fully support it if there was any evidence to show that there was some type of mistreatment with these animals at this particular retailer. And I've been in that retailer many times over the 20 plus years that I've lived in this city, especially when my kids were younger, because they wanted to see the animals and stuff. And not once did I see anything of any concern to myself. I've reached out to our bylaw people, and there's only been 2 complaints in the early 2000s when this retail outlet was owned by a totally different person. So I'm really struggling to understand where this is coming from, other than you've had I assume a rescue shelter reach out to you wanting only rescue animals to be sold out of this retail outlet, which I would anticipate would effectively shut down this one and only retail outlet that does sell puppies. And my big concern with doing that is, like other things, when you make drugs illegal, it just pushes it underground. That's why alcohol ended up becoming licensed through a licensed retailer. Now we don't have the alcohol problems that we had 100 years ago, allegedly. Obviously, I wasn't around when that occurred, but and it's no different than when you look at prostitution. Why do you think we have the human trafficking issues that we have in this day and age? It's because of the lack of regulation around that. And that's my big fear, is that we are now going to create a bylaw that is potentially going to be in contravention to provincial laws for our own municipality. And when you refer to Orangeville, which is the one that I did most of my research on, they gave the store a 1-year memorandum. It was a close vote because not everybody was in favor of it. It was the same retailer that was targeted, however, a different owner. And now they've given that retailer 12 months until they're no longer allowed to sell these animals that do not come from rescue. And that I'm just really struggling to understand why you're targeting this one particular retailer when there's no evidence that we have a problem.
So I'm happy to speak to that.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah. And so I didn't note a particular retailer or anything because although it came from an identified individual to say, look at this. I'm not aware of any concerns or complaints. I did call the retailer directly just to give notice that this was something coming about. It wasn't meant to be targeted, but I wanted them to be well informed because some people are not watching City of Barrie conversations, and to reach out to their respective ward councillors. Also did identify, and asked questions based on what I saw. Understand you're a different business than those that might have been caught in media tied to other pieces, but the intention really is not targeting a particular business, but looking at this from a movement where other municipalities have changed their bylaws to where they're able to look at, I would just say, concerns with any business operating in a way in which it profits from the sale of animals that might actually go through third party or otherwise, informal breeders, and the wellness of the animals of concern. I also left the language a little bit general because the concerns that I've researched really do target more around kittens and puppies. So this is a request for staff to investigate if there's merit in us following suit where we can, as a city, appropriately refine our bylaws. So there are different conversations to it there that I respect about if you change your bylaw, will you incentivize individuals or individuals that might be breeding animals informally through some means to just do it online? So there are the things that we can control and influence, and there are the things that we cannot. And people will have to be responsible for the ethics of that or what research they get. But in general, does the city council have an opinion about when stores that operate in our city and the parameters by which and provisions by which they're able to source animals? So I'm interested in seeing what staff come back with. I think it brings good conversation to the table. Orangeville was, I think, reflective with putting a 12-month delay on enforcing a bylaw where it impacted a potential business. When I reached out to the local business, we talked a bit about the impact. I'm happy to have those conversations, but this is broader than that around, are we doing what we can within the parameters of our bylaw adjustments to protect the welfare of animals around how they're sold in the city of Barrie?
If I may follow
Councillor
up, Your
Harvey?
Worship.
Sure.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not against getting the information. However, a few pieces that you may or may not be aware of when it comes to the Canadian Kennel Club, which is the oversight body. Again, it's not a governing body. It's like it says, it's a club.
Yeah.
They oversee solely purebred breeders. There is no club or association that oversees the crossbred animals. And if you talk to most professionals, they will tell you that a crossbred animal is typically a lot more easier to deal with than some of the purebreds. And this is part of the concern too. There is at least a governing body for the purebred animals, but that's just solely dogs. There are no governing bodies when it comes to any other animals that myself or the people that I've reached out to in regards to this are aware of when it comes to things like hamsters, birds, turtles, cats. So you're very restrictive on your motion here. And as a result, I'm okay with getting the information, but I would like to pose an amendment to your amendment. And that would be to, after the word registered humane society, to include and licensed breeder. I do believe in your first motion, you changed the word. Did you change the word animals to dogs in your first amendment?
I did not, but I'm aligned to that.
Okay, because I would also put that into my amendment to your amendment also, because it's very evident from the way the discussion's gone that your target audience is the dogs. And also too, when it comes to regulations around animals, they're the only ones that have the regulations around them, other than when it comes to welfare related legislation at the provincial level and sometimes at the municipal level. But this has become a bit of an issue ever since the change of the OSPCA, no longer enforcing the provincial rules as of March of 2019. And now the provincial government has their own enforcement team that deals with this. So I'm okay getting the information. However, I'm very reluctant when it's very clear in this motion that we are targeting a single retailer in our city that has no history of abusing animals. And I just want that to be totally clear that this motion is solely not based on any concerns that you've been able to present at this point.
If I may, Your Worship, in response.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm completely aligned to that, Councillor Harvey. It's really not intended to at all pinpoint or be punitive, but it is to kind of start raising a conversation to say, should we be doing more when it comes to a topic that's been raised around animal welfare and what's within our ability from a bylaw? Are we happy with the current bylaw? Would staff make other recommendations? Was there merit around the language used in some other municipalities that have taken this step? I'm keen to explore that. And again, looking at, maybe we refine it further when information comes back from city staff.
Okay, so procedurally here, and we're getting way into the weeds here. The procedure here, the motion that was put on the floor by Councillor Kungl was the printed motion, except for the words "and registered breeder." Councillor Harvey has now moved an amendment to put those words back and change the word "animals" to "dogs." Is that correct, Councillor Harvey?
I think you used
Ye-
licensed breeder.
Yes,
Sorry,
and also
licensed.
adding licensed breeder at the end.
Yeah, so the original item had registered breeder. And Councillor Kungl took that off. You are going to put that back on and change the word "animals" to "dogs." I've got that correct? Licensed breeders?
Yeah, licensed opposed
Yeah.
to registered.
As opposed to registered. Got it. That amendment is on the floor, members of General Committee. Does anybody wish to speak to that amendment? No. Okay, I'll call the question. Those in favor of that amendment, please indicate. Is anyone opposed? None. That carries. On the motion as amended, it's to investigate the feasibility of amending the business bylaw. Further comments or questions? Councillor Thompson.
I think this is where we say, "Oh my." Through you, Mayor Lehman, to the mover. I was just wondering if there was any intention with this, like, let's be honest, 95% of all animals are sold online. And that's some of our troubles. As Councillor Harvey said, that there's one in Barrie that's still selling, but most pet stores are supplies and food and services. So majority of people are going directly to breeders or wherever through the online service. Is there any consideration of that, or with your motion? I understand it's the bylaws that we can control and licensing, but at some point it just seems that we're really not going to capture the protection of animals in any way, shape, or form with this bylaw. I was just wondering if you were looking at this just being a start.
Through your worship to Councillor Thompson, I mean, I'm happy to continue that conversation when it's about the welfare of animals. I don't think it's an area that I'm aware of that we can touch online. This is really just about, is there a healthy step, an appropriate step we can consider and take that's within our mandate? I think the rest, unless others have ideas, really does fall to maybe future conversations about education awareness and how we point individuals to good information about how to find out how your pet is sourced, where it's from, and making sure that there are questions that people are asking, whether they're looking to buy through a pet store or whether they're looking to buy online.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Thompson. Further comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of the motion as amended? Any opposed? None. That carries. Okay, that completes the public items. We do have one in-camera item, which we'll do at the completion of the public agenda. It brings us to inquiries of staff. Deputy Mayor Ward, any inquiries of staff?
I have none.
Members of committee, Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I would like to maybe discuss dog, it's funny we're talking about dogs, dogs off their leash throughout the city, and maybe we can narrow the search down to, sorry, excuse me, Ward 10 and Ward 8. Is maybe Wendy, sorry, the clerk could maybe answer that for me, Mayor Lehman, please.
Sorry, what's your question, Councillor McCann?
Just, has there been any inquiries from residents, any complaints from residents? Has there been any increase in fines by bylaw officers with dogs being off leash? And then I've got a second part to the question that I'd like to address council.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and thank you, Councillor McCann, for the question. I would have to get back to you on that. with respect to the specifics on the increases. I don't have those statistics right now. We do know that a number of people have bought COVID pets during this time, and there has been an increase of people adopting animals. So, and just, I guess too, generally the people being at home, notice things more, activity outside, but I would be certainly happy to get back to members of council by email with respect to those numbers.
Well, and definitely, sorry, through you, Mayor Lehman, and to Wendy, to the clerk. I appreciate that. And sorry, I should have requested this information maybe on Friday to give you a little heads up. I mean, I've definitely heard some, a lot more complaints throughout my ward and Jim Harris's ward, Ward 8, just because we share a beach together, and they're conflicting. There are some people that are feeling threatened. There are people that are feeling that the city needs to do more. So I guess I maybe will ask a rhetorical question to council, and if they could maybe respond back to me through email, text, or phone call. The city of Barrie, I think it was last term, Ms. Cook, that we did a survey asking Barrie residents if we wanted to have dogs be able to, like a dog park with water access. Was that this council or was that the past council?
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor McCann, that was this term of council. It's
okay.
When it was in 2019, I believe.
Okay.
I'm going to ask Ms. Miller to jump in because there is a report forthcoming on parks in general in the next few months.
Okay.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor McCann, certainly we do have your direction from previously to come back to you with respect to public access to the waterfront and beaches and that sort of thing. And your first report back will be in March, and then a subsequent report. So we could do our best to incorporate some of that into that report or continue to follow up.
Maybe I could just put my my instincts right now, Mayor Lehman, if you don't mind.
Well, it's under inquiry, so if you can keep it quick, that would be great, Councilor McCann.
I will definitely speed this up. It's just that, I think Ms. Cook actually kind of stole it, or kind of like read my mind, because I mean, the amount of dogs and maybe pets in general that have been sold during COVID have just escalated, where I think they're like 500 times more expensive now and hard to get to reach. So I just think there's a different climate than there was 2 years ago, right? Because of Ms. Cook said, people are spending more time at home. Definitely people are a lot more sensitive about pretty much A to Z in society now. And I think where people's maybe sensibilities were not so affected maybe 2 years ago, they're just, they're protecting their own. So I guess I'll just maybe throw a lob your way and say, if we could recognize that maybe we're in a different climate than we were 2 years ago, and that can maybe, the report can maybe reflect some maybe present, 2020, 2021, maybe information from the public would be useful for me. That's it. Thank you.
Other inquiries of staff, members of General Committee. Councillor Congle.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Ms. James Reed. Quick question. While we're doing quite a lot of communications out, especially with announcements coming out of the province around funding, I wanted to ask if it was possible to send out, or if there was an avenue to all of our local businesses to remind them about open applications for the Main Street Relief Grant. I've had some recent conversations with businesses in Ward 3 who still weren't aware of it and seem to benefit from it, but knowing that that was a grant that small businesses, the criteria expanded to 2 to 19 employees around broader sectors that are now eligible to cover costs for PPE. I was hoping you could maybe suggest if there's an area that could be shared again, if it had been, to our businesses.
And actually, I'll just jump in on that because actively involved in that at the moment, Councillor Congle. It's probably a question best for Steph Schlichter, and I don't know if Ms. Schlichter's on the call or not tonight. There's 4 grant programs, including the PPE cost for Main Street, but the main one is the Ontario Small Business Support Grant. And Ms. Schlichter's department is actively making calls to businesses to promote the grant, actually, as is my office. So we decided to pitch in just to get the word out to every small business in Barrie that we could find, between myself and my staff, as well as, of course, the work. And I don't want to overstate that. We're making a few calls. Ms. Schlichter's team has already made hundreds and is making many more. So Ms. Schlichter, do you want to talk about how we're promoting those 4 Ontario small business grants?
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, through you to Councillor Kungle. That is correct. We are making direct phone calls to businesses that we don't know, and those that are on some of our ward lists. And then we are also with comms working together to put messaging out through all of our social, all of our channels to try and get the word out. And we've been working very closely with our stakeholders and partners at the Chamber, Tourism Barrie, BIA, and they are also doing some direct messaging and again, providing some of those tools and seminars for trying to connect. So any support to help us get the word out, we appreciate, but we are doing direct calling. And as Mayor Lehman mentioned, I think we're close to 300 calls at this point.
Thank you. Impressive. My appreciation, as I'm seeing other head nods, for the work and outreach that you're doing. And I guess I would invite you, if there's anything static I or others can put up on our social media sites, I'm happy to do that, or push off to any individual businesses to echo that, then by all means, engage me as you need to.
Thanks for that, Councillor Kungle. And yeah, I would just encourage, I mean, the easy thing to do, members of council, is to put on your Facebook page the connection to the Ontario government's application. The Ontario Small Business Grant, I can walk somebody through the application form in about 3 or 4 minutes. It is not a difficult process at all. Everybody from sole proprietors to businesses up to 100 employees are eligible. You need your revenue numbers from April 19 and April 2020. And you need a whole bunch of information about the business itself, but not a ton of detail. It is really about a half an hour to an hour long process for a business owner to apply. It is, I have to credit the Ontario government, this particular grant, and Minister McNaughton, I was on a call with him last week, and they have seen tremendous interest in this grant program, in part because the application process is really straightforward. So the best thing you can do, push this out to the small businesses you know by linking the Ontario government's website so that people are going straight to that application form. If they need help with the process, Ms. Schlichter's department can walk them through it, but they're not going to need a lot of help because this is easier to fill in than any tax form I've ever seen or anything like that. It's really been very well designed. And then the other 3 programs, the minister also did want us to note that they have been not as well subscribed, and part of that is because originally they were very narrow in their framework in terms of what was eligible, especially on the PPE side. That has since been broadened. And so those applications apparently are now a little bit easier and a little bit applicable to more businesses, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then the last thing I'd note is I think the applications they're taking the big one, the Ontario Small Business Support Grant, until March 31st. So it's only 1 more month. And so I would really encourage businesses out there to apply. And I commend Ms. Schlichter's department because they're proactively calling businesses. And I think that's really great support to get a call from the city saying, we want to help you get these funds. Other inquiries of staff, members of General Committee. Councillor Harvey.
Actually, I just wanted to add to the conversation that was just taking place there with the small business subsidy through the Ontario province. And I was actually quite surprised with one of our local businesses that I had some assistance with, and they literally were approved that same week. So it just goes to show how quick and streamlined this process seems to be, that they see the urgency and want to get the money into the hands of our small businesses to keep them afloat through this. So kudos to the provincial government, because I know a lot of times people are pretty quick to complain about process.
Yeah, and the process, it can be much more difficult on most grants, that's for sure. The only caveat I'd put on this is because I have had some, call it medium-sized businesses, you know, the restaurants out there and so on, say, because it is advertised at 20 grand as the limit, the 10 is the initial grant. And yes, I mean, for a sole proprietor, a business of 5 or 6, that can really be a huge difference. If you're a pad restaurant with 100 employees, you probably need to be looking to the federal government for the much larger grant programs. So we have been directing some of the businesses, you know, that might qualify because they've got 50 or 75 employees. You know, 5,000 or 10,000 is probably not what they need. They need the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, which is the federal grant program. So anyway, a lot of that information's on the Chamber's website and on the city's website. But this one in particular is a really great program because for all those really small businesses out there that have not been eligible before, either because they're new or there's just too much burden, they really did a good job of making this one easy to apply for small businesses. So agreed, Councillor Harvey. Any other inquiries of staff? Members of General Committee. Okay. I had one. Mr. Prowse, there was significant concern expressed over the weekend about Council's decision to discontinue the lease of the Georgian Theatre. I know there is a lot of information out there you know, surrounding this decision, and not a lot of understanding around what might come next, if anything, and what some of the reasoning was. I don't need you to go through all the information. I guess what I'm looking for tonight, in addition to raising it at a council meeting, because I wanted to publicly recognize the number of people who've already expressed concern about council's decision, that from here, there's going to be some communication out to the cultural community who are affected by the decision. So maybe you could, I don't need the information so much as an understanding of what staff are going to be doing next to communicate with the groups that are affected by the decision and push some information out on what's going on.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Lehman, through you two members of committee. Certainly, as the General Committee is aware, there is some concern in the cultural community around the decision around Georgian College. And while the decision, I think, has to stand as council's decision and certainly supported by staff as we made the recommendation. Beyond that, I think some of the groups have some concern about how we got there, and I think candidly feeling disenfranchised from the process. And that's never an acceptable outcome, and it certainly is never staff's intent. We have a tremendous amount of support already in place for all of our diverse cultural groups. And you know, my intention is to deliver a letter fairly broadly to those groups, outlining some of the steps we've already taken and some of the opportunities around the path forward and what that looks like, and to re-engage and continue to engage with those groups to try to address some of the concerns that I think they have rightly raised. I think some of them are because of a lack of understanding, and some of them are because we just need to do a better job. And I'll be expressing that to them tomorrow, and hopefully that will continue the effort our teams are making by way of outreach to those groups.
Okay, thanks for that, Mr. Prowse. And I think for what it's worth as well, Council, I mean, we make the decision, and we made this decision. This was a reverse intake form in the budget. And the fact that we had made the Fisher decision after the budget was printed meant that when we then made this decision, we closed the, we closed the only existing space. So it's really, as much as I appreciate staff communicating back, the process and the lack of engagement, perhaps, of the groups, it really was. It's on the 11 of us. I mean, we're the ones who made the call to approve the staff recommendation to close the Georgian Theatre, having just killed the Fisher project in terms of the renovation of the facility. Now, of course, Councillor Jim Harris moved a motion as part of the budget as well to establish a theatre reserve. And the Fisher project, while the renovation of the existing facility was killed by council and the demolition approved, the project to proceed with a planning for a new facility is very much, of course, alive. However, it was council's decision that we close now, long before a new facility would be ready, our involvement in the Georgian Theatre. And so I think I wanted to say tonight that, that's on me, that's on us as council, because we made that call. And unfortunately, I think we made the decision in the absence of a viable strategy for the medium term. We know in the short term, these facilities aren't going to open because of COVID. But we I think should know that we're not going to have a new facility ready anytime soon to pick up the slack for the groups that are now without an option. Now, I think there are some discussions that need to occur now about what that interim strategy looks like. And I think we will want to have more to say about that, both as council and as staff in the coming weeks. But I did want to recognize that concern, and the reality is, until we have a long-term strategy, there are going to be it's a gap, a major gap in our community in terms of the lack of that size of a facility. Okay, any other inquiries of staff? I don't think there were any announcements. I'll move on. Deputy Mayor Ward, any announcements?
I have none.
Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Worship. I wanted to do a shout out to a very deserving Ward 3 resident, if I may. So on Friday, due to the hard work of Sandra Eason-Bruno, one of our Ward 3 residents, but also the lead for the North Simcoe-Muskoka Specialized Geriatric Services Program, reached out to staff, Barrie Police, Barrie Fire, and many others to make sure that they could effectively do a drive-by of Roberta Place on Friday. So I wanted to shout out to Sandra and her team, as well as to Ian McClure, who is on bagpipe, and the Barrie Fire Services that joined in the lifting of spirits of residents and those working at Roberta Place. But overall, a really lovely online social media campaign that came together. And so if you haven't seen it or participated in it, if you follow online, #ShowTheLove, you will see an amazing array of outreach that this created, from Hospice Simcoe staff writing a song and performing it, to, in particular, a shout out to Monsignor Claire students in grades 7 and 8 that did up cards and sent them in to homes, including Amica in Ward 3. Thank you for lifting the spirits. It caught on, and it was lovely to see. And I wanted to thank Sandra for bringing that idea forward and really showing what's possible with engagement with residents. I have one other announcement.
Go ahead.
And this is for all those garden enthusiasts, a couple of just highlights. So looking at all those bugs out there, the Barrie Urban Gardeners and broader. So Urban Pantry has been doing some online videos around planting your garden. Mike McCann's on the Communities in Bloom committee. That group I'm aware of is coming out soon in March. If you want to register your gardens, we are going to be looking to register the Janice Laking Garden and a call for volunteers. So reach out to me if you're interested in volunteering with that garden. But I know the Community in Bloom's program, I think, has identified the color yellow being the theme for the Hope Gardens. So if you are a gardener, please start to think about adding a splash of yellow, and we can showcase that through various formats. But again, I'm also seeing a lot of individuals, when we talk about gardening, also identifying how great it has been over the past year through COVID. And as we enter into the next growing season, the different food shares that have happened through our city's program, the Connected Core and the Give and Get food table, to our community garden plots. But also there's been an amazing support to the food box program, and individuals have been purchasing the food box and donating them. And they've been going to our women and children's shelter, and they've been going to families in need across Barrie. So don't forget, food security is an opportunity that you can get involved in. Reach out to many charities and programs, but also looking forward to seeing you all in the garden this spring.
All right, thanks, Councillor Kungle. Councillor Morales.
Thank you. I almost went to a meeting saying a word. was sharing again. The only announcement I had was this Wednesday, February 24th, Ward 9 Town Hall with yourself and me and Ward 9 residents, 7 p.m. And residents go to our website, barrie.ca, to sign up for the registration link. And that's it.
All right, thanks very much, Councilor Morales. Other announcements, Councilor Jim Harris, did I see you? Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Liam. This may be on your docket, so I'll be short, but I just want to recognize the coldest night of the year. Was it on your docket?
Yeah, go ahead though, please.
Okay, I'll be quick. First, I want to thank everybody who helped out. 119% of the goal was raised. So kudos to Jennifer and Lucy at Youth Haven. And if you haven't looked into Youth Haven, please visit their website. As far as there's so many great causes, but they are among the top. So please make a visit. And I want to we got in late, and I want to thank Jennifer Kaplinski for the friendly, just, hey, Jim, what are you up to? And so got in late with the team, but I want to thank Councillor Thompson, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Natalie Harrison, Councillor Aylwin for the support. So great to be part of a wonderful effort, and congratulations again to everybody. 190% of the goal raised. So well done, Barrie, on the virtual walk.
Yeah, well done. Thanks very much, Councillor Harris. Councillor Aylwin.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I just have one announcement, and it's still Black History Month, and there's a great event coming up this Thursday, February 25th, hosted by Georgian College. And this is a panel of Black leaders from diverse sectors within our community, and I hope members of the public will take the time to attend and learn about these amazing members of our community. So it's Thursday, February 25th from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. and it's called the Black Experience, Past, Present, and Future. And people can learn more about that event and RSVP in advance at georgiancollege.ca/the Black Experience. georgiancollege.ca/the Black Experience. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aylwin. Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and I'll do a few segues. The first segue that I'll have is through Council Keenan Aylwin, and talking about Black History Month. Had the great pleasure when I was in an event. I met John Burroughs, who just got appointed as Officer of the Order of Canada. And I've asked him to be put on the names for street signage. Now let's read a little clip. John Burroughs, Canada Research Chair of Indigenous Law, has been appointed as an Officer of the Order of Canada for the scholarly work of Indigenous rights and legal traditions, which have had significant impact across Canada and abroad. Burroughs, co-founder of Indigenous Law degree program with U of Vic, among 62 new appointments in Order of Canada. So John and I are definitely associates, and a great guy. And I say the segue is Black History Month because he actually sat on the panel that created the new $10 bill with Viola Desmond on the actual $10 bill that's horizontal, not vertical. The only thing I don't like about John Burroughs is that he went to Central. Everything else is he's done great. He lives out in BC, and he doesn't know that I put his name up. And I would love for the two Central. I think there's only two Central councillors here, right? And Mayor too, to get involved and show some Central love. And when that comes on board, it'd be great. Good old Barrie boy that got the Order of Canada. I reached out to Don McAlpine to ask if any other Barrie residents have received that. And I'd like to see if we can't bring them by for the inauguration. Second announcement that I have actually segues from Council Congo, and she's talked about the love, and that was actually a really inspirational announcement, Councillor. I love stories like this. We need more positive stories in this pandemic. And who's ready to love Barrie? I love Zoom. It's such a great energy thing. So the new I Love Barrie competition is coming board, and I can't believe we're on year 5. It started with my ward and Ward 10. We had such tremendous response that it was such a success that I asked council to adopt this. And I hope that you go out to your elementary schools in your ward. I know Gary Harvey and I, we did some trucking a few years ago, I think Ritma and Elwyn, and just talk to your principals, talk to your teachers, get the kids involved. And maybe what I'll just read as a little clip is that City of Barrie 2021 I Love Barrie contest is open to all Barrie Elementary School residents. We invite students from kindergarten to grade 8 to express their love for our city by sharing a photo or a piece of artwork or short story. Entries will be judged on originality, positivity, and expressiveness. 3 winners will be chosen, and prizes will include an I Love Barrie prize pack, winners' names shared on the barrie.ca website and in the Barrie Advance. Winners will have the chance to share their winning entries at a city council meeting, hopefully in person, and go on Cool FM and Rock 95 morning shows. The contest ends March 5th. I'm telling you that to me, there's nothing more inspiring than helping out our youth in our city. And I've had the great privilege of meeting the winners, and I just hope this council maybe takes a little time out of their busy schedule and promote this within your ward, because I'm telling you, it may be a little deal to you, but it may be a huge deal to the people that actually enter this competition. So I'll say arrivederci.
Thanks, Councillor McCann. Any other announcements, members of the General Committee? Councillor Morales.
Mayor Lehman, not an announcement, but just kind of a follow-up to Mike McCann's announcement about the street naming. Just as a direction to staff, I think if we do end up adding that name to the street registry, it would be kind of cool if his name was located on one of the actual streets or side streets in the very central property. If we end up approving buildings in that area, that would be kind of cool. I'll let staff do their job, but just kind of wanted to add that would be a great.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Morales. Any other announcements, members of General Committee? Okay, I do have a few. As of February 16th, of course, Barrie, along with the rest of Simcoe Muskoka, was moved back into the red level of restrictions for COVID-19. There are still, of course, broad-scale measures and restrictions across multiple sectors. We did see a large number of cases over the weekend, 77 reported over 3 days in Barrie. It's really highlighting the need for folks to continue to abide by the restrictions as much as possible and not be gathering at this time. The city has been able to open for in-person appointments, City Hall, in-person appointments only at Service Barrie. So the way we're going to do that to stay safe is you got to call and come in one by one. So call 726-4242 if you wish to come in for an in-person appointment for documentation or otherwise through Service Barrie. Of course, though, I will still plug almost all of our services are available online and more are being added all the time. The results of the Name the Snowplow contest are in. I think I did mention this last week. We do have 15 new snowplow names. Plowy McPlowface, Say It Ain't Snow, and Austin Plowers were the top 3. The balance of the names are on the media page at barrie.ca. On February 15th, the city's community improvement plans open for 2021 applications. Those close on May 15th. So financial incentives for eligible projects. There are 3 grant programs: the redevelopment grant, preservation of built heritage, and of course, affordable housing, the Affordable Housing Development Grant Program. So that information on that is all online at barrie.ca/planning. And look for financial incentives for information on how we are encouraging or if your project can qualify for affordable housing, built heritage grants, and redevelopment grants. The city is asking residents to share their vision for the future of transit through an online public engagement platform. The public consultation on the Barrie Transit Vision closes March 1st, so next week, and that is at buildingbarrie.ca/transit vision. I mentioned earlier in the meeting tonight that the sanitary sewer item, the giant pipe issue, which council wrestled with and staff and the landowner community and the Salem secondary plan have been dealing with for literally years, was approved tentatively by General Committee tonight. And the significance of this for the city is Not only that it services some of the anticipated new neighborhoods in the Southwest, but also the business park lands along Highway 400, the industrial employment lands that are proposed to be located at Mackay Road and the 400. So this is a very important piece of infrastructure, and because we didn't hold the item tonight, I wanted to make mention that that long-awaited piece in terms of our economic offer and making sure that there are locations in Barrie for manufacturers to grow and for businesses to for us to compete to attract businesses to the city, new large-scale users. This is a very important piece of infrastructure to do that. Parking, of course, as of January 1st, we did make some changes to on-street parking, pass locations, and parking pass structures, but that isn't the fun parking news tonight. The fun parking news tonight is on March 1st, we're launching the app, and the app is called Hotspot, which is pretty clever branding for a parking app. It is in use in some other municipalities. We aren't the first, but I would like to think we are the best. It features contactless payment, extending your parking session. So if you're in at a doctor's appointment and the doctor's running late, which never happens, and you haven't paid for enough parking, you can just extend it off your phone on the app. You get a refund for unused time. I'm not sure how I feel about this one, but I'm sure it's better for the customer. If you don't use your whole time, you can actually get that back. And the way the whole thing works is an online wallet. So you will, load up the card, if you will, with some money, $10 on your parking, your hotspot account. You'll use that, and unused time gets refunded. So it's much better for the customer that way. You can pay parking tickets should you happen to get one through the app. And of course, there's customer service. So whole series of benefits that will go into effect, be available for download off the city's website as of next Monday, March 1st. It's called Hotspot, and it will be available on the city's website for the downtown, for the waterfront, and for the Quarry Ridge and Hospital area where there is city parking. Last note, of course, our on-street overnight parking restrictions are still in effect. Inevitably, as soon as we get some warm weather, people will ask if it's necessary, and it is supposed to be above zero a fair amount over the next 2 weeks. But of course, at least until April, the end of March, those restrictions are in effect because we can get snow at any point. So please don't park overnight between midnight and 7 a.m. until April. Last public item on the agenda tonight is the circulation lists. Members of council, any items from the February 8th circulation list? Okay, seeing none. February 11th. And how about tonight's, February 22nd? Okay, seeing none, that completes the public items tonight. I do need a motion to go into closed session to discuss the appointments to the Accessibility Advisory Committee and the Active Transportation Committee. Moved by Councillor Kungl, seconded by Councillor Riepma. All those in favor of moving in camera, please indicate. Any opposed? None. Okay, that carries. So we'll say goodbye to our public audience tonight, and we'll just go briefly into camera for the